Hello everyone, this is Taryn with Wonderfully Made Handcrafting, and happy Monday. Mondays are the days where I try to do hymn stories for you, and today's hymn is one of my favorites, Trust and Obey. When I looked up the backstory of this hymn, I found it very interesting. Dwight L. Moody was actually having meetings in Brockton, Massachusetts, and Brockton is only 5 minutes from where my husband grew up, and so I thought that was a cool touch, and it was just something that was relatable. Daniel Brink Towner was the musical composer for this hymn, and he writes, Mr. Moody was conducting a series of meetings in Brockton, Massachusetts, and I had the pleasure of singing for him there. One night, a young man rose in a testimony meeting and said, I'm not quite sure, but I'm going to trust and obey. I just jotted that sentence down and sent it with a little story to the Reverend John H. Sammis, a Presbyterian minister. He wrote the hymn, and the tune was born. So Towner and Sammis ended up writing the music and the words, and the hymn was created in 1887, just about a year after the series of meetings in Brockton, Massachusetts. So although this is a very simple and quick story, I did want to read the first verse to the hymn and the chorus, which reads, When we walk with the Lord in the light of his word, what a glory he sheds on our way. While we do his good will, he abides with us still, and with all who will trust and obey. Trust and obey, for there's no other way to be happy in Jesus but to trust and obey. So I'm linking this hymn with one of my favorite passages in John 15, and we'll start in verse 4, which reads, Abide in me and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit by itself unless it abides in the vine, neither can you, unless you abide in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever abides in me, and I in him, he it is that bears much fruit, for apart from me you can do nothing. So in regards to this pocket card, I had a fabric greenery piece that I decided to glue down as like the staple piece of this card. And I also put some texture paste down and used some of the Distress Embossing Glaze on top. This is in the color Walnut Stain. And I really like the look that it gives when you heat set this. It makes the texture paste bubble a little bit, and then you have that kind of glossy finish that the embossing glaze gives. After embossing, I'll work on my mini cluster that I'm putting on this card. I had this little picture from a Tim Holtz Ephemera pack of a little boy and his dog. Now I'm assuming that whoever said that line, that he was just going to trust and obey at the meeting, was probably a little bit older than this boy, probably an older teenager or maybe even a young adult, but I decided to use it as a reminder and just because I thought he was cute. So now I'm using my Dymo embossing label maker and spelling out trust and obey. I will cut that up eventually, but first off, I want to add a little bit of grunge to all the edges of this card to add a little bit more depth. So I constantly have brown on this brush, so I'm not sure what brown it is. It's just whatever browns I'm working on, that's kind of what goes on the brush, and I don't really care what brown it ends up being. It's just kind of a mixture of all my distress oxides. So I just layered that down on the edges to add some depth, and now I'm going to focus on this cluster and distressing every single one of these pieces. So I'll use my scissors and rub the edges. I find this a little bit easier than the special little tool to distress edges. I'm not sure why, it just seems easier with my scissors. So I go around every little edge, and then I'm also going to go over with that blending brush as well so they don't have that stark white on the edges. Now that little building photo actually came from the Pocket Bible journaling kit that By the Well for God sells. I really liked all the mini antique and vintage ephemera that they gave with the kit. And so they all come on clear sticker paper, but I choose to put mine on some white cardstock. I just find it easier to work with since I don't usually layer clear stickers down on my backgrounds anyhow. So this is just an easier option for me. There's a little pack right there that I took it from, and then that is also the Tim Holtz ephemera pack. It's called Thrift Shop that I got the picture and the other little ice ticket from. Now I didn't roughen up the edges of that building photo since it is on clear sticker paper, just on cardstock. So instead I just used my blending brush on top of it and took off the stark whiteness off a little bit and just added a little bit of brown on the photo so it matches with everything else on this card. I wanted to add a couple metal elements to this card, and so I decided to take my tiny attacher and create a little faux stapling job to the corner of this photo. Obviously, it is not holding it onto the card. It's just in that one photo, but then I will glue this down so it kind of looks like it's being held down with that staple itself. I'll end up cutting this title up a little bit. This embossing label maker creates very wide titles, like the font is just wide since it has to emboss it, and so you can't fit a lot on these tiny little cards. So instead I have to make it in 3 different lines, which is totally okay with me. It does take up more of the card, so you know, I don't have to do as much basically on these cards when I have a title like this. But what's nice is that they are already sticky. That backer is completely stuck to my hand. I can't get the static off. But anyways, I'm just laying them down and then I'll work on one more addition. Now I know I had said that I wanted a little bit more metal on this card. I don't know, I just love grungy metal together on these little pocket cards. It does add a lot of chunk to my Bible, but it's okay. So I've decided to take this metal eyelet and I'm going to punch a hole in all 3 of these pieces right in the center of this cluster and put that eyelet in with my Crop-A-Dile. Now, this is kind of where I decided this was not really what I wanted. I didn't really like the look of it. And so I was struggling a little bit with it. And plus, I made sure it wasn't going to mess up the back side, like I could still read everything. But I just didn't like the look of it on the front or the back. I wasn't expecting to like the look of it on the back. But here is where I pulled it together. I did have a little bit of mummy cloth left over from another project that I did, and I just threaded through that eyelet, kind of like it was meant to hold that mummy cloth, and I just ended up gluing it down to the side of this cluster. And then I'm also going to put a little glue on the back side, and for some reason, I don't know why, but it just makes that eyelet better for me. I like the eyelet to have a reason for being there, I guess. I found that out, and I guess you find it out the hard way. So anyways, now I know that when I punch an eyelet, I definitely want something there. So that is basically it, guys. I will add this pocket card to John 15 in my pocket Bible. And I hope you enjoyed this hymn stories. This has been really fun, this video series for me to walk through with you guys. If you've enjoyed it, please subscribe to my channel and give it a thumbs up. You can also follow me over on Instagram at Wonderfully Made Handcrafting. I hope you have a wonderful day, guys. Bye.